You know, this idea of having 5 or 6 meals a day, it is absolutely bonkers and absolutely mad and absolutely unnecessary. There is a particular condition that everybody needs to be aware of. This is something for generations, doctors, the medics, the scientists weren't talking about, primarily because they didn't know about it. And this particular condition is called insulin resistance. So what is insulin? Insulin is a particular chemical that is released from your pancreas to help take your blood sugar from your blood into your cells so that can be used as energy. When you eat too many sugary foods, insulin gets pumped through, and at some point you got so much insulin in your blood the cells cannot cope, and so they develop a resistance to insulin. And so this is one of the causes. What are the common symptoms of someone who has insulin resistance? First of all, you're going to feel lethargy, you're going to feel tired. You might eat something in the middle of the day and you're going to feel absolutely shattered. You're just going to want to sleep. Another area is you're going to have hunger. You're going to have constant and consistent hunger. You know, this idea of having 5 or 6 meals a day, it is absolutely bonkers and absolutely mad and absolutely unnecessary. Your body is constantly working for you. However, if all your energy is being diverted to your digestive system and then to all your mitochondria, if you live in England, it's a bit like going onto the M25 motorway, which is a freeway, a highway that goes around London. It's like going onto that motorway and every single car in London is on that motorway. How far will you go? You will not get very far at all. And so if all your mitochondria are constantly working, then your body is going to be absolutely shattered. One sign of insulin resistance is hunger. You're going to have this constant need to eat. So of course that's going to have repercussions because you are going to end up, for most people, end up being either overweight or obese. Which brings me on to weight gain. Did you know there's a correlation between obesity and insulin resistance? Every single person who suffers from obesity is because they have insulin resistance. I worked with a friend of mine relatively recently. A couple of months ago, we started doing some work to remove his insulin resistance. I'm going to talk about the how-tos on another episode. As a result of him practicing what I shared with him, within 2 months, he lost 28 pounds in weight, which is 2 stones in weight. That's 12.7 kilograms. Of course, you've got to think about where he started from and where he ended up. That's to do with insulin resistance. Another thing you're going to find is when you have insulin resistance, you are going to have trouble focusing. You are going to have what you call brain fog. So you know there's a lot of students out there at school or university who have trouble concentrating, and sometimes we say, oh, they're not clever, or they're a bit stupid, or they're lazy. Well, the truth is they're suffering from insulin resistance, and over 80% of the population have got insulin resistance without even realizing. Of course, the other thing that insulin resistance leads to is an increase in blood pressure, so you're going to have high blood pressure. And finally, another symptom is you are going to have high levels of cholesterol. Not all cholesterol is bad. There's good and bad, but you don't want too high a level of cholesterol of either. Let's have a look at sugar. How much sugar do you think is in your blood or should be in your blood? We're talking about if you were to take all your blood, you pumped out all your blood, you'd be dead, of course, don't do it. If you pumped out all your blood, put it into a bucket or a beaker or a jug, how much sugar content do you think would be in that blood? 1 teaspoon, 2 teaspoon, 100, 1,000? How much? So one of the big causes that are in your hands of insulin resistance is having too much sugar in your blood. When we say sugar, we're talking about obviously the processed sugar, the white sugar, the brown sugar, fruits. They say in England you should have 5 portions of fruits and vegetables. It's nonsense. All your vegetables have got sugar in it, and fruits have an awful lot of sugar. Yes, have fruits, not a problem, but every now and again. However, keep in mind, fruits such as grapes have a huge quantity of sugar in them. So too much fruit, complex carbohydrates such as white potatoes, starchy foods like pasta, rice, all of these boost your sugar levels. This is why people from my culture, for example, so from the Indian subcontinent, many of them are rice eaters. After they've had their meal, they need to have a siesta. They need to have a lie down and sleep for a while. That's because you have high levels of insulin resistance. Another reason is if somebody's been taking steroids constantly. We're talking about high levels of steroids. We're talking about people who are, say, bodybuilders, or maybe it's a medication for you. People with high levels of steroids on a consistent basis will develop insulin resistance. And also, somebody who suffers from polycystic ovary syndrome has a high chance of having high levels of insulin resistance. Now, another thing to keep in mind is this. At night time, so we're talking about 1 or 2 hours before you go to sleep, you have an increase in the amount of melatonin in your body. Melatonin is the stuff that helps you to sleep better. But here's the problem. When you eat in those last 1 or 2 hours before you go to sleep and you've got melatonin coursing through your veins, going through into your cells, when you've got melatonin in your system, then the pancreas does not produce insulin. So if you eat something sugary like a cake or a biscuit or anything sugary, soda, when you do that, you boost your level of sugar in your blood. So in essence, you are causing yourself to become pre-diabetic. Unless you're already a diabetic, it is not good for you. Also, when you wake up first thing in the morning, you have high levels of melatonin still in your system. So give it an hour, 2 hours before you have breakfast, because at that moment, when you do eat first thing in the morning, you are gonna increase your levels of insulin resistance. You will not be able to actually produce any insulin to process the sugar in your blood. So to summarize, insulin resistance is caused by a number of things. One is having too much insulin in your system because you've been eating too many sugary things. The other reason is actually inflammation. Scientists have noticed that people who are obese, for example, one of the reasons they're obese isn't because they've got just fat in their body, but it's also because they've got inflammation. They've swollen up as a result of having stuff like wheat-based products, grains, starchy foods. All of these increase your levels of insulin resistance and doesn't do you any good for your health. And the third cause is one of the real big killers besides sugar is milk. Milk and dairy products. We're talking about milk, cheese, butter. Generally, you as a human being aren't supposed to be drinking milk. As an adult, you certainly shouldn't be drinking cow's milk as a human, full stop. Yes, your mother's milk when you're a baby, not a problem. That's when you need it. But you do not need it as an adult. Milk leads to inflammation. It helps encourage insulin resistance as well. In order for you to change, there are a number of things you've got to do. And so in a future episode over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to share with you some of the things I guide my clients to do. And everybody's different, of course, and everyone's got different systems for sure, but I'll give you a general guide in a future episode of the Energy Healing Podcast on how to deal with insulin resistance. Thanks for watching. See you next time.